Hi! Well, here we are at the end of these 10 weeks, and we're going to be thinking in this last week about Daniel, and then we'll be looking back at where we've been over these 10 weeks. One of the great things about the book of Daniel is the way it divides into two halves. There's two sorts of material that's there. The first half is stories about Daniel and his friends living in what isn't now really exile, it's more dispersion, because it's not exile because they're not compelled to live in a foreign country, but they apparently are choosing to stay there, like me in the United States really. And these stories help them to have ways of looking at the challenges of living in an alien land. But then the visions presuppose a quite different context, a context in Jerusalem some centuries later, when the faith is under pressure, when people are being martyred, and when the challenge to faithfulness takes a different form, and when God doesn't seem to be intervening in the way he does in the stories. And so the genius of the book of Daniel is to combine these two contexts and these two sort of experiences that the people of God have. Sometimes you can see God reigning, sometimes you can't see God reigning. Now that links in turn with a question that may be in your mind as a result of your study. I wouldn't be surprised if it's the case that the kind of thinking about the Old Testament that I've talked about, and even more that you've read in Coogan's book, has worried you at times with regard to questions about how the Old Testament came into existence and what kind of book it is. I wouldn't be surprised if from time to time you've said, "Really?" And if you've wondered how it can be the case that the Bible can be the Word of God if the kind of views about its origin that we've considered are right. And at the end of the course, I want to remind you of something that I like to say and that's important to me, which is the fact that we receive the Old Testament from Jesus and we can trust him. What I mean by saying that we receive the Old Testament from Jesus is that he makes it of foundational importance for his own life, follows its guidance, reflects its teaching, shapes what he has to say in light of what he has to say. And the fact that it's so important to him suggests that it's quite appropriate that it should be important to us as well. He wouldn't have given us the impression that these scriptures are so important if they weren't important, and if they weren't something that we could be sure about relying on. So when you hear things about theories about the Old Testament that make you wonder, things that people say and things that you can't understand, remind yourself of the fact that we do receive this book from Jesus, and be assured that we can trust it as the Word of God, even through those times when it seems rather strange to us and we wonder how the kind of things that we see or that we hear can be right. We receive it from him, so it's okay.